your host, Mashuma Saba, M. Saba, and this is our Cultural Variety Podcast. Stay tuned. Welcome to Coffee Talk. I am your host, Mashuma Saba, M. Saba, and this is our Cultural Variety Podcast. Stay tuned. Happened, but I did not hear our intro at all. We actually had some technical difficulty as we was coming in tonight. But welcome to the show, Coffee Talk Podcast. I am your host, Mashuma Saba, M. Saba, and this is our Cultural Variety Podcast show. How are you all doing today? This is our first time back, y'all. Yes. This is our first time back. We did take a short hiatus as we've been helping with the kids and so forth. I do. Okay, 1 2 1 2. Let me know if you can hear me, and if I'm clear to you. Again, I do apologize that we are not intact. If you're watching us on screen right now, we're just having a few technical difficulties. But we're getting it together as we speak. As we speak, we are getting it together here. So how has your summer been? How has y'all summer been? Me, I've been all over the place. I know a lot of us have been all over the place with our kids. A lot of kids just graduated, becoming young adults. And, we are still grinding, trying to make sure that we reach every one of our kids through literature, through inspiring themselves, encouraging themselves, and inspiring them to go forward in whatever endeavors that they would like to go into. I'm a little thrown off right now, as you can tell, because our intro didn't get played. But I'm back. And tonight we're going to go ahead and have a discussion tonight. And that discussion is going to be on one of the most powerful books written, called The ISIS Papers. It was written by a great scholar of ours by the name of Dr. Francis CRESS WELSING. And the story that we're going to talk about tonight was written back in November of, one moment. It was written back in November of 1979. That's right. It was November 1979 when Dr. Francis CRESS WELSING wrote the titled chapter 13, The Concept and the Color of God in Black Mental Health. The Concept and the Color of God in Black Mental Health. Now, again, when this chapter was actually written by our great scholar, November 1979, I was actually 6 years old at the time. So, um, her studies may be before a lot of your time, but a lot of y'all that watch this show on Monday nights, Monday night cultural study nights, you are familiar with her. Again, she's one of our great scholars, and she talks about what's going on tonight. So that's where we at. But if this is your first time tuning into the show, I want you to know that we never start the show without giving you its flavor as well as its wise words. You know what I'm talking about? And before we jump into the flavor and wise words, I'd like to hear from you. So if you're tuning in and you're watching us here at Coffee Talk Podcast live on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and leave us a one in the comments. Leave us a one in the comments that you're here tonight checking us out, and let me know how your day has been. This has been a great summer of festivities. I've been involved in a lot of stuff, been enjoying myself. I want to know how y'all's doing tonight. Go ahead and leave that in the comments. Also, it's really cold right now today. It's supposed to warm up a little bit later this week, but today is the perfect day to dive on into a book. And so thus you come to Coffee Talk Podcast so you can enjoy yourself on a nice day like this. You probably have the great aroma going on in your kitchen, throughout your house. People are finally relaxing. Laundry's done. Errands are ran. And you're getting ready to pour yourself something to drink, possibly some water, some wine, a smoothie, a beer, a cappuccino, a latte, whatever it is that you're getting ready to pour. We're just happy that you're doing it with us here at Coffee Talk Podcast, the cultural variety podcast show. All right. So today's flavor is cold coffee. That's right, cold coffee. It really doesn't matter which particular kind of cold coffee you're having, but for me, I've been on a kick with a caramel latte. That's right, caramel latte is the flavor tonight. That's my coffee choice. Again, it's a cold coffee. And what I like to do when I'm enjoying my latte coffee is I like to have almond milk, medium-sized caramel coffee, and I like to have that with the caramel sauce as well as the crushed up ice, whatnot, the creamer, all that. Again, the almond milk and the whipped cream. You know what I'm saying? And man, that's life right now, especially on a day like this when I don't want nothing too hot, but I do want something to give me a little jump start into our evening. So tonight's flavor is the caramel latte. All right. Let's go ahead and move forward on the night. Okay, so tonight's wise words comes from a gentleman, man, that I remember him coming out of North Carolina. He was a basketball player with swag. You know, I don't really have to go further into talking about he was the number 2 draft pick behind a gentleman by the name of Sam Bowie that went to Portland in the first round. But this gentleman went to the Chicago Bulls. And over time, he was a deadly scorer, breaking his foot somewhere around the second year of his season. So we didn't get to see him. I think it was the first season. But then he came on and he continued to show the league that this man was hungry. It was no longer the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird era. So tonight, our wise words comes from, you guessed it, number 23 himself, Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan has said these wise words. He said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. I've been trusted to make the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed today, because I went through the trials and the tribulations. That is number 23, 45. Back to the 23, legendary Michael Jeffrey Jordan. We back, y'all. We just getting a little bit of the static out. You know what I mean? It's been a while, man. So we are back here at Coffee Talk Podcast. And again, this is our cultural studies night. We always appear on Sunday or Monday alternate nights. But tonight, I want to just dive right on in. So let's go ahead and do that. Tonight, we'll be talking about the book, The ISIS Papers, The Keys to Colors by Dr. Francis CRESS Welsing. And if you have this book, we will be starting on chapter 13. It's a very short read, but also tonight's show is not for anybody that's interested in talking about the latest entertainment news. We're not on that tonight. So if you're coming here to hear about P. Diddy's allegations, or you're coming here to hear about anything other than our cultural studies, this might not be your show tonight. I would ask that you tune in on our Friday, Saturday nights when we do a little bit more entertainment coverage. And, we call that grown folks social hour. But tonight, we know that school is back in session. The day is September 22nd. There's college kids roaming the campuses right now. Some of them just getting back to their dorm room. Some of them want to just hear something. This may inspire papers that they may have to write this quarter, but that's why we're here. So yeah, we are going out towards the audience of tonight. And we like to call that our conscious families. You know what I'm saying? Let's go ahead and jump right into the show. The concept and the color of God in Black mental health. Agnostics doubt and question the existence of God. Atheists deny the existence of God. These two groups combined constitute a tiny minority of the world's people. The vast, overwhelming majority of the peoples on earth have conceptualized of and a belief in the existence of God, no matter how named or defined as the supreme force or supreme being responsible for the creation of the universe. Therefore, this supreme being constitutes the highest and ultimate focus of their worship, devotion, and obedience. In all but the agnostic and atheist groups, the training and teaching of children about the concept of God in a given culture began at the earliest possible stage or age, I should say, at the earliest possible age of comprehension and understanding. Customary long before children are capable of understanding any philosophical and abstract considerations of God, they are exposed to the system of rituals that the given people have evolved over thousands of years. The rituals form a part of their recognition of worship of or obedience to their concepts of God. Thus, long before there is a true cognitive understanding, there is participation in the practice of recognizing God. The participation in practice becomes a part of the children's and ultimately adults' concept and image of self in relationship to the total environment, but also in relationship to the highest and ultimate focus of their worship, devotion, and obedience to the God of the people. For it is a totality of experience in the environmental form, the moment of birth, that forms the self-image and self-concept in the brain computer of each human being. From this self-image and self-concept, all patterns of behavior evolve. Likewise, from the entire constellation of behavior in an individual, the determination of mental health or mental illness is made. As a practicing general and child psychologist, my definition of mental health is as follows: patterns of logic, thought, speech, action, emotional response, in all areas of people's activity that spontaneously reflect self and group respect and respect for harmony in the universe. The critical question that arises now is, what does the concept and color of God have to do with being Black? Self, group respect, and respect for harmony in the universe. The oppression of Black and other non-white people means that there is no non-white self-determination. It also means, most fundamentally, that there can be no true and functional Black self-respect. More specifically, this means that the existing levels of non-white functional self-respect, as manifested in all areas of people activity, are extremely low. These low levels of functional self-respect imply that the self-image and self-concept are more negative than positive. Likewise, the impact of the non-white individual and collective behavior is, and on the total environment, is more negative than positive. To have a negative impact on a total environment is a manifestation of behavioral powerfulness. Listen to that. Listen to that, my people. To have a negative impact on the total environment. I want y'all to think about who does that, who fits that description. But to have a negative impact on the total environment is a manifestation of behavioral powerlessness. To have a negative impact on the total environment is a manifestation of the self-image and self-concept as powerless. To have a negative impact on the total environment is a manifestation of having been shaped and molded by the total environment into a functional inferior through the process of inferiorization. The process of oppression is to mold the victims of oppression into functional inferiors. So what would those be? We have a diagram here, diagram 1 and diagram 2. I won't put those up as of yet, but I will explain the two. The first one is the child's brain computer. The total environment, which represents the economics, the education, the entertainment, the labor, the law, the politics, the religion, the sex, and the war. All of those things are in the child's brain computer. All of them have an effect on self-respect, self-image and behavior, and also self-concepts, whether that's negative or positive. The child's brain computer, diagram number 2, deals with the image and concept of God as the highest and ultimate focus of worship, devotion, and obedience. So when you're taught about the image and the concept of God as the highest, the ultimate focus of worship, devotion, and obedience, this parlays onto your self-respect for yourself and others, your self-image, the behavior of that, and also, again, the self-concept of negative or positive. So when people start to ask, why they have Jesus as white, or why they have these white images depicted in your church, a lot of that has to do with, again, self-respect, self-image, and the self-concept. And it all has to deal with, again, your environment, your economics, your education, your entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Some people won't date interracially because of that. Some people are affected and want to go to war and fight other melanated countries because of that. Some people practice a prejudice or getting infected every day with racism because of their environment or their economics, their education. And a lot of us lose ourselves through the entertainment portion. Something I want you to talk about. As we continue on, and we're almost done. Matter of fact, let's continue. As I see people chopping in right now and leaving comments. Thank you. Shout out to Troy Felix. Troy Felix says, sounds like the Rockefeller game plan they have executed to perfection. Nice, nice. Let's go ahead and continue. As previously stated, the global system of white supremacy oppression functions through all areas of people's activity. The ultimate thrust towards the victims of oppression in all of the 9 areas of people activity is to cause and affect their universalization. This is achieved equally in the area of religion as in sex. It is achieved equally in the areas of war as in economics. It is achieved equally in entertainment as in labor. It is achieved equally in politics as in law. In other words, all 9 areas of people activity are used equally in the system of non-white oppression to achieve the ultimate goal of non-white inferiorization. The concept and the color of God are focused on most strongly in the area of religion, although all areas of people actively overlap, influence, and fuse with one another. The global white supremacy system evolved a religion referred to as Christianity. However, it is referred to most appropriately as the dominant pattern of religious thought generated by white supremacy systems. Similarly, all forms of economics within the global white supremacy system, whether referred as capitalism, multinationalism, communism, or socialism, are identified more appropriately as the patterns of economic thought and practice generated by that system. Further, all forms of political organizations within the global white supremacy system, whether referred as democracy, Nazism, Soviet hegemony, fascism, and nationalism, are referred to more appropriately as the various patterns of power relationships generated by that system. Absolutely critically to the white supremacy system of religious thought was the formation of the image of a white man as the son of God. This white man, this white male image then was referred to as a Christ, no matter that the prophet Jesus was a black man, because the brain computer functions most fundamentally on logic circuits at deep unconscious levels. Is automatically computes that God the Father is also a white male. See what she's saying here is that you've been infused to believe in an image outside of yourself. And this is how she's giving the breakdown. If God is other than white, he would have produced a black or other non-white son. Thus, any person programmed to accept the Christian religion, whether conscious of it or not, has the image and concept of God as a white man in the logic network of his or her brain computer. Couple this image and concept of God as a white man with the white supremacy system's formal definition of God as the supreme or ultimate reality, being perfect in power, wisdom, and goodness, whom men worship as creator or ruler of the universe. Then, of absolute necessity, the logic circuits of the human brain computer have to print out the white man as God, the father of the white male Christ, is the supreme or ultimate reality. The white man is the being perfect in power, wisdom, and goodness, whom all men should worship as creator and ruler of the universe. See, she's given a description of how it infects people's thinking worldwide. With this unconscious logic circuit of God as a white man firmly in place, the white domination over non-white people could last for 1 trillion years. This would be true if this critical and essential logic connection could be implemented and plugged into the brain computers of a sufficient number of black, brown, red, and yellow peoples who constitutes the vast majority of the peoples on the planet. With the white man as God, the non-white global collective would be obedient to the white man always. It was the necessary duty of the vast army of white supremacy, Christian missionaries that are sent out around the world following the guns of white supremacy conquest to implant deep within the unconscious logic networks of non-white brain computers. What she's speaking about right here, and I know a lot of you are going to be able to relate to me, but in the Black communities, you tend to see these little boys always come through. They're missionaries. They're usually riding a bike, usually have on a white shirt with a tie. And they're riding the bike and they're going to some elderly person's home to preach Christianity. You know, throughout our history, there's always been people that would come into your village, your community, your neighborhood, and present to you a religion other than your own. They call that missionaries. Let's continue. The critical image and concept of God as a white man, this unconscious implantation has been successful to the extent that many non-white people on the planet conceive of themselves as members of the Christian white supremacy religion. In the US, the overwhelming majority of Black people, as well as a large portion of other non-white peoples, consider themselves Christian. Could this possibly be why there's so much confusion in our community? Could it possibly be the hatred of ourselves? Could this possibly be why we don't love ourselves or believe in ourselves or see our supreme being in another image of ourselves? We are the only culture that does this. Let's continue. Thus, all Black and other non-white peoples who profess to be members of the Christian white supremacy religion, whether they are conscious of it or not, worship the white man as God, not as a God, but as the God. And in the unconscious logic networks of their individual brain computer lies the logic that the white man is the supreme or ultimate reality, the being perfect in power, wisdom, and goodness, whom men worship as creator and ruler of the universe. Although Black and other non-white peoples may understand that they are oppressed by the global white collective, of which the white males are the dominant members, the brain computers code logic circuits also unconsciously inform the white Christian, the non-white Christian victim that it is impossible to free or liberate oneself from the supreme being who has created the universe. So do you ever get free if you can close your eyes and think of Yahweh or Jesus or Yahshua, depending on how you pronounce that? But when you close your eyes, you still see the European's image. This is by design. This is what she's speaking about here. And because of that, that image has ruled you as a collective. Some of you are put fear in yourselves. And some of you have a hard time of moving forward because you feel like there's a hell that you would go to, not realizing that perhaps you're already in it. In other words, if in the deep unconscious recessive of my brain computers rests the fundamental logic that God is a white man and that I should worship God, all of my attempts at liberation will move me only in a circle. Indeed, the circumference of my liberation movement circle could be so wide that it really appears to me that I'm moving in a straight line of progress. But moving in a circle, no matter how big the circle, is a testament to standing absolutely still, marking time. Many Black people in the U.S. now are beginning to feel as though our liberation efforts, in spite of loss of life and whipped heads have left us still standing on the same spot of white oppression, meaning that we have not made any gains. I was in a store today and I overheard a conversation between a black man and a white man today. And the black man was talking about how he's going to vote. And he was saying how his governor, Tim Walz, is a good governor. And he said, yeah, he's a good governor. And I thought to myself, when I think of Walz, and I think Walz is an okay guy. But I wanted to, I started to think about, well, has he done truthfully that makes him a good governor? What are we looking for as a collective versus how he can just help a few people? So that's something that I want you to think about. Go ahead and leave that in the comments, what your thoughts are on that. We're almost done here, and I do appreciate you all tuning in to Coffee Talk Podcast and watching this show. But I do want to hear from you as well. Go ahead and leave your comments on tonight's show, The Concept and Color of God. Okay? Let's continue. For the vast majority of Black and other non-white peoples today, the arrival of these ice-cold facts of brain-computer logic at the conscious level will be experienced initially as shattering and self-disintegrating, primarily because it is God, the protector and the creator upon whom self is taught, which is programmed, ultimately to depend. If the concept of God is removed from my brain computer, upon whom or what am I to lean? Especially if I'm feeling oppressed, depressed, or overwhelmed. If there is nothing or no one to provide support, then I believe that I will collapse and disintegrate. Nevertheless, as a general and child psychologist, I am fully aware of the destruction spawned by the unconscious logic implant that God is a white man. However, no matter what the level of initial trauma felt when this logic circuit is brought to conscious awareness, it must come fully to light and be yanked out. What she means by yanked out is we have to stop believing in the image of somebody else when we are the image and reflection of our creator. Indeed, there can be no mental health, self-respect, or positive self-concept for Black or other non-white peoples as long as this spacious and destructive logic circuit remains in place. It might be instructive at this juncture to recall that Christianity was based upon the life and activity of an African Black prophet named Jesus. That the white Romans recognized this fact is reflected in the early portrayals of Jesus and his mother as the Black Madonna and Black child. To this day, the picture of the Black Madonna and Black child secretly is cherished as one of the most holy icons of the original Christian church, the Catholic Church. What then necessitated changing the image of Black Jesus and Black Mary to a white Christ and white Mary? To answer this question, we must return to the most fundamental fact in the existence of the global white collective. White-skinned peoples initially were the mutant albino of Black peoples in Africa. These white-skinned peoples were recognized as having a disease, just as today's modern science of genetics refers to the condition of albinoism, which is a lack of melanin pigmentation, as a genetic deficiency disease. The white-skinned early albinos were rejected by the normal pigmented majority. They were chased out and isolated from the normal Black genetic groupings. Eventually, they had to migrate northward to remove themselves from the intense African sun rays. Migrating northward from Africa, the albino populations eventually settled in the area of the world now referred to as Europe. There they increased in number and eventually returned to conquer the peoples of color in Africa, Asia, and the rest of the world. They returned with the idea that they would conquer and no longer think of themselves as rejected and diseased population. Instead, they would think of themselves in compensation as the superior, supreme supermen and look upon all skin pigmented peoples as genetically inferior. With the necessity for such a compensatory ideology, the concept of self as superior, the white psyche could tolerate no concept of anything higher than the white self, not even God. Ooh, listen to that. They can't tolerate anything higher than them, not even God. Thus, when the concept of the Son of God was formulated in their thinking, the Son eventually took the form of a white man, which by brain computer logic would mean that God himself had to be a white man. Thus, this white collective in logical reality is not the worship of any force behind itself. So they didn't have to use force after a while. They used the image. And today, the image is what capsulizes your critical thinking, your love for oneself. And this is why after a Sunday sermon, you could turn around and kill another. Let's continue. Further, it is apparent that the collective white psyche felt anger towards God for bequeathing them what is now understood as a genetic defect, namely their white skin. In turn, they have spawned the thinking that doubts and denies the existence of God. Thus, they have conceived of themselves as being at war with nature, which is the reflection of God. They function as though they are in a contest with God and try to outcreate God. Think about that, people. Do you see that anywhere? There has been allegations and sayings that people would like to block out the sun. Why? When you know that the sun fuels everything into existence, it births everything, it helps it grow. So why would you want to block out the sun? Why would you want to leave things in the sky? Why would you want to change the natural order of things? Could it possibly be to outcreate God? Let's continue. Presently, there are in a quest to produce genes of life itself. In fact, their dominant occupation is the destruction of the universe. And it is no accident that within the large, I'm sorry, let me repeat that. And it is no accident that within the language system of the most highly evolved white supremacy unit, the word God is the exact mirror image of the word dog. And within the same language system, dog, not God, is said to be man's best friend. Blacks and all other non-white peoples have operated under the concept of God as a white man for the past 2,000 years. Should begin an immediate return to the fundamental concept of God as originally understood in Africa before the input of the albino collective. The African understanding of God was that it was the only and all-in-one energy force that created spontaneously was the all energy in this universe. This understanding recognized the God force as the source of all, the being responsible for all of the multiplicity of energy configurations in the universe. Furthermore, the belief held that there are no energy configurations in the universe that are not from God and that are not God. It was the African way to respect completely this source of all energy manifest in and responsible for all things. This is African spirituality. Spirit is energy. Spirituality is the ability to get in touch with not only the ultimate source of all energy, but also the various multiplicity of energy configurations, which include matter, planets, animals, etc. This was for Africans the essential cosmic connection, the power connection. Since melanin is a superior absorber of all energy, it is essential to establish this understanding of God and all energy. The fact that the albinos white lack melanin may also help to explain why they have quite a different concept and understanding of God, all energy or all spirit, why they conceive of a trinity, and why, in the view of many non-white peoples, they lack spirituality and the capacity to tune into it and thereby establish harmony and justice in the universe. Further, because they lack the melanin sensory system, they cannot initiate, they cannot inute that all is one. However, at some unconscious level, there must be within the collective white psyche the awareness that the color black is essential to be in touch with the God force, the justice and wisdom. And that is why they clothe their men who are supposed to have knowledge of justice in black. And they clothe their scholars at the point of their scholastic wisdom achievements, such as graduating in black academic robes. Of course, one might cite a few exceptions, but black for ministers, priests, judges, scholars is the norm in the white supremacy system culture worldwide. I recommend that black and other non-white peoples begin to practice consciously removing that white image of the Son of God from their brain computers, and thus removing the corollary logic that God is a white man. He is not. Secondly, blacks and other non-white peoples must practice utilizing our particular energy crystallizations, which is bodies, as a direct connection with the God force. This means we must learn to use our energy crystallizations, the antennas, to connect with the source from which all energy flows. It is the same as plugging an electronic cord into a wall socket. By so learning to tune in to the cosmic energy source, it is possible to find the cosmic purpose of one's particular energy configurations known as one's body. Then it will be possible to use the cosmic energy for constructive purposes. I can say no more about how it can be done, but only that it can be done, just as I am saying that it is possible to break the logic circuit. God is a white man in the non-white brain computer. So if you practice every day, loving yourself every day, in so many words is what she's saying, you can't step out of that matrix of believing that your colonizer is God or that even your money is God. And we are finishing up here with only 10 seconds of the story. I can say no more about how it can be done, but only that it can be done, just as I am saying that that it is possible to break the logic circuit. God is a white man in the non-white brain computer. To be black and accept consciously or unconsciously the image of God as a white man is the highest possible form of self-negation and lack of self-respect under the specific conditions of white domination. Such perception, emotional response, and thought are therefore insane. This logic circuit ensures that black people always will look up to the white people and therefore down upon themselves. Only by breaking that logic circuit can the concept of black and other non-white liberation become a reality. This is the direction in which we blacks must propel ourselves as we enter the 21st century. by our great scholar, Dr. Francis Cress Welsling. This is chapter 13 of the ISIS Papers, and it is titled The Concept and the Color of God and Black Mental Health, November 1979. So what is y'all's thoughts on that? As you can see, we're just dealing with cultural studies tonight. And this is what we do every Sunday, Monday night, alternate nights. We go ahead and, we get into the library. You know what I'm talking about? And we definitely want to make sure that we affirm that you are great, that you are valuable, that you are lovable, and that you are the original people of the planet. Go ahead and leave your comments on tonight's show. What your thoughts are on that. I would love to hear from you. But until then, as we have concluded tonight and finished up our story, I'd like to just go ahead and throw up the universal peace sign. I'd like to let you know that we are back, and we will be seeing you on Wednesday for Wednesday Night Sports, because we are a cultural variety show. And again, we appear 3 days a week. We do alternate Sunday Mondays, which is our cultural studies nights. We also do Wednesday Night Sports. But again, we don't care who won or lost a game. We like to bring you the different intricacies that's going on in the world of sports. And then on Friday and Saturday nights, catch us for the big party. You know what I mean? We call that Grown Folk Social, or we like to play 10-question Q&A. We like to have guests. We like to just, talk that talk, Earl. Talk that talk. But hey, man, this is Coffee Talk Podcast, and I am your host, Mashuma Saba, and we are restarting our season 3 now that we're coming off our hiatus. Summer is over. Let's get back in these books. So until next time, I'll see you when I see you. Coffee Talk Podcast, the cultural variety podcast show. And I am your host, Mashuma Saba, M. Saba. And this is our cultural variety podcast show. Until next time, peace.